if media would say, you're no longer going to be allowed on our network if you continue this type of dangerous, hateful rhetoric, because we're not going to publicize it. The toughest thing for me is to reconcile trying to solve for the cities without overpowering the rural. If Sacramento would get out of the way, cities would build housing, and 90% of the people would be responsible, and then 10% go crack down on them, right? Get them straight, but let the rest do their thing. Instead, they just create laws that get in the way.
Hey, everyone, and thank you for joining another Myers Side Chats. I am thrilled to be here today with a super exciting guest, Mayor Pro Tem Rocky Rhodes of Simi Valley, California. His journey to public service is rooted in deep commitment to the community and a diverse professional background that spans the technology and coffee industries. His professional career began in the high-tech sector, working with prominent companies like IBM and 9X. This path eventually led him to LA in 1991. In 96, he transitioned from the tech world to follow his entrepreneurial passion in the coffee industry, founding Rocky Roaster, a coffee roasting and wholesale business in Canoga Park, California. He successfully operated this business until 2010, when he sold it and moved his family to Simi Valley. Currently, he owns and operates International Coffee Consulting, a business that has taken him around the globe to improve coffee supply chains and foster relationships between producers and consumers. His work in this field is guided by the principle of compassionate capitalism, aiming to enhance the quality of coffee while improving the lives of those who produce it. He's been a member of Rotary International for over 20 years and actively supports local nonprofits in Simi Valley. Rocky focuses on maintaining the city's high quality of life, advocating for sustainable development, and ensuring Simi Valley remains a safe, thriving community for its residents. Sir, it's an honor to have you here today. Thank you.
No, be honest, totally. Did AI write that? Because I'd vote for that guy.
The honest answer? A little.
Awesome. Yep.
It's pretty good though. Well, and it was very honed with information I already found.
Right. Excellent. Well, that's pretty good. It's great to be on your podcast. I'm excited to see what the next hour holds.
Yeah, we're gonna have some fun today. I'm excited to pick your brain and learn more about your experience, how you got here, your entrepreneurial way of thinking, and surely for me that's very relatable. It comes to working in government. So, tell me a little bit about compassionate capitalism and what that means to you.
So in that AI generated thing, there was another line, which is, and it's actually a core tenet of the Coffee Quality Institute, which I teach their curriculum around the world. And it's, if you improve the quality of coffee, you can improve the lives of people that produce that coffee. So what we get to do is help coffee producing countries all around the world. And coffee producing countries are not the most financially sound countries. I think the term third world is becoming a little outdated, but poverty-stricken countries. And one way to handle poverty-stricken countries is go in and throw a whole bunch of money. That's never worked, ever. But what we can do is improve the quality of the things that they are producing and selling. And if we can do that, they will get more money for the things that they produce and sell. And that's compassionate capitalism, getting there, giving education, giving skill sets so that it's the hand up, and then they can get move their way out of poverty. And I can honestly say that I have been able to change villages, and there is nothing more humbling and gratifying and that I'm more grateful for than the opportunity to go and do that, to affect lives. And it's not a ton of knowledge. It's just a little bit, and it goes so far. And so that's compassionate capitalism, teaching people to better themselves, to produce a product or get in the system so that they can improve their lives.
I love that. It's a beautiful way of looking at why you're doing what you're doing and how to do it well and how to create good value, and at the same time, have an important mission behind it. I think it's so important, and I know this has taken you all around the world, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's a little bit of, if you will, redistribution of wealth going on. I teach this class in coffee producing countries where they can't afford my services. And so that's generally a give back. But then I go to first world countries that consume coffee, and I teach the exact same class at top dollar and make all of the money that I need to make for myself to live and be able to give back. And so I'm taking from those people. I'm charging them for these skills and services because they can afford it and they want to pay for it. And then I go to the other countries and give that service away where they want the service but they can't afford it. And another example of compassionate capitalism, figuring out how to sustainably be able to give the services and needs to the people that need them by producing a product or creating a product that is sellable.
Yeah. How is this going to these countries and experiencing their way of life and working with them directly? Well, first, can you give me a few of the places that you've gone to? But more importantly, how has understanding those cultures shaped how you think about what you do day to day, your perspectives, and as a leader in government?
Awesome. I'm going to start with this. This is a machete from El Salvador. That was my very first origin trip. And we were getting a class on pruning coffee trees in the jungles of El Salvador. And the person who was giving the lecture, he didn't speak in English and I barely spoke Spanish, but I asked him, hey, where can I get a machete like that? And he looked at me like, that's the dumbest question I've ever heard, but hardware store in town, $20. I'm like, no. Where can I get a machete like that one that's been used in the coffee fields of El Salvador that I can take back to my coffee shop, hand it to my customers, explain where I have been, and they will now touch the earth in El Salvador through this machete, and we'll sell so much more El Salvador coffee. Being a very wise capitalist himself, he went, $20. And I got his dinged up machete used in the coffee fields of El Salvador. The thing about going to these countries is you actually connect, you touch earth where they are. And the basket is from Myanmar, the placards are from Rwanda and Kenya, Indonesia. I get to travel to these exotic lands and meet people, scratch the earth with them, sometimes sleep on dirt floors, and that is the best bonding you can do with someone. And they know that I'm there not for personal gain, but to see if I can help. And how it affects my politics. Here's one of the truths that I've brought back from traveling. I think I've hit 20 countries now in the world. Big cities everywhere are big cities anywhere. They have very similar problems of density and growth and traffic and transport and education and poverty, and places anywhere are rural places everywhere, right? So the people that scratch the earth, they have a simpler mindset. I'm gonna love my God. I'm going to love my family. I want to provide enough food, and as long as we're safe, I'm good. I don't actually care what happens in politics. And when you actually think about our country, if you've got LA and New York and then everything in between, we have two sets of problems in the world. We have the rural people that just leave me alone, let me be in my life. And we have the large cities that have the predominance of the issues and problems because they have the predominance of the people that are in them. And so the toughest thing for me is to reconcile trying to solve for the cities without overpowering the rural. And that's a problem in LA. LA/California Central Valley are two different things. It's a problem for our country, the big cities on the coast and the flyovers in the middle. So it really helped open my eyes that there are city problems and rural problems as opposed to, well, there are also government problems, but communists versus democracies or constitutional republics. But that's been opening my eyes, and it does affect how I think about working on things in Simi Valley. I'm rambling a little bit, but Simi Valley, the biggest enemy that we have is Sacramento, trying to solve problems for the entire state with one law, where that problem is really kind of a city problem. We're a suburb. We're not rural. We're not high density city. We're a suburb, and our problems are different to solve. So Yeah,
Where has that been most pressing for Simi Valley?
housing. It's all so the way that Sacramento is dealing with the homelessness and housing problem is just build more houses and everything will be okay. Except for the fact that that's demonstrably a false way to solve that problem. They then force density solutions that might work in large cities where you have 10 stories of living and 2 or 3 stories of commerce and then a transit hub down below, because you have that density of people and you need to do that. That doesn't work or appeal to Simi Valley. Simi Valley, we are more single family homes. We are spread out. We're low. We don't like things over 3 stories, but we can still find ways to create housing in a responsible way to get density where density fits. But Sacramento doesn't let us do that. They've taken just piece by piece, they've taken control over our zoning away so that we can't actually build a plan and say this is how housing is going to work in our city. And it's super frustrating, and I spend a lot of my time now fighting against the laws that have already been passed, or in this recent season the laws that are about to be passed and signed by the governor, because some of them are just stripping more of those rights and abilities for the city to solve their own problems.
Where have you seen success in an alternative solution, or would you propose that could be successful?
uh, there so there I'm going to answer with success and failure, and why each one is a success and failure. Let's start with the failure, because then it'll help me tell you why success is so good. The failure is a project we call the Tapo Alamo apartment complex. It was a project that was forced upon the city, and it was forced because laws say that if you make so many of your units affordable, then you get bonuses. It can be a parking bonus. You have more dense parking. It can be a height bonus. You can go as high as you want. It can be a density bonus. You can put more units per acre than other things in the city might be. And the city can't say no. So this a developer came in and said, we want to do this. They went to the neighborhood council. Neighborhood council said, that's not us. Then they said, well, fine. They went to planning commission. Planning commission said, no, we don't like this project. Came to city council. We said, no, we don't like this project. And they said, yeah, well, we get to do it anyway. So they went to build and we stopped them. We as the city. And this is just before I came on. And then the developer says, that's fine. I'm going to sue the city. Just before the ruling came down, judge gave us some letters that said, so here's the thing. You're going to lose, right? You fight this thing even further, you're going to lose, and it's going to cost you $1 million to fight it. Of which, if it was just $1 million, I might have fought it. But if you lose, which you probably will, because it's written in law, then you're going to lose all of your zoning rights in Simi Valley. The state takes over all zoning. So not only you lose the money, you lose any ability to control housing. So very reluctantly, the city council, just before I came on, had to vote yes. I was sitting in the audience and I was ticked. I said, this is ridiculous and we shouldn't be doing it. But so I call that the bad development. There's not enough parking. It went to 4 stories. The density is too high. It's going to create problems with the neighbors and more congestion on the roads. It's a bad project. Here's a good project. Another developer is developing 280 units, almost the exact same number of units of apartments on the Tapo Street corridor. And they own the entire swath of land that includes a Walmart and several other retail. They're going to raise half of the retail and put in 280 units. They took the density bonus because they're putting in affordable, and they got a 4th story, but they layered it back. So from the street, you won't even be able to see the 4th story. The residents behind went, this is going to suck. It's going to look like a giant wall. We hate it. And the developers went, I hear you. And they redesigned the exterior wall and did an elevation of it. And the residents went, that's cool. I actually like that better than what I look at now. So they listened, worked with. They put more parking than they were required to put in because they knew that they would get better tenants. They have retail on the 1st floor, so you can have live above, loft above and store below for those people that want to live and work in their same shop. It's walking distance to shopping, Walmart. It is It is on a major transit way. They put the right project in the right place and worked with the city, didn't take maximum bonuses, but figured out a way that they can make money on the project. And we love that. So we got our density, we got it in the right place. We got a nice look for it. So it won't be a massive eyesore monolith box. I think that that's the right way to go about building density into the city.
So have you replicated a version of that since?
There's been one other project proposed that wasn't retail oriented, but proximity close to retail and transit, and that was just allowed on Erringer. Neither one of these projects have been built, but one other thing that we were able to do with some, for lack of a better term, leftover federal money that we were supposed to use for housing, given the interest rates are so high, we gave a bridge loan of $1 million to the developer of this other apartment complex to get them started. They said, if we can bridge this financing, we'll go. And we know we need to get something built, so they'll actually start building. The other thing that's really frustrating as a city, because we don't build anything, we just allow it to be built. Rates where they are and supply costs what they are, no one's building. They have the right to build, just no one's doing it. And that's super. We've entitled hundreds and hundreds, thousands of units of housing, and they're not being built. So that's frustrating. But
explain a little bit why they're not being built.
Yeah. So in California, you have the normal things that slow down building, like CEQA and rules and regulations, just make it long. Given the interest rates right now, developers aren't just coming up with $100 million to put in, they're borrowing that money. And if they're borrowing that money at 7% as opposed to 3%, that puts a huge dent in figuring out the profitability of that project. So they're more likely to see if interest rates come down in the near future so that they can make them. I mean, 4% of $1 million is a chunk of change, and they've got to turn a profit on these units. So that generally delays them. It's eased now, but there was the whole supply chain problem where I think if you remember when we were in the midst of that, plywood was like 4 times the cost that plywood was a few months before. Mm-hmm. That has worked its way back down. So there's still elevated costs, but they're more towards reasonable, and interest rates are on their way down, and hopefully, the Fed will do what they need to do.
It's economically not motivating.
That's correct. Yeah. I mean, compassionate capitalism. I want you to build a house. Yeah, but I'm not going to do it if I lose money. Okay. Let's see if we can come up with a thing. And for the city, loaning that $1 million for less than 15 years will get that paid back. We can loan it to somebody else. That will actually get them to start now instead of continue to wait. So we think that was a success for the city to push some housing forward.
Do you think the way that you're thinking about this now is useful for a lot of the smaller cities or more rural areas?
Yeah. In California? So there, I think every city should be allowed to do what they're going to do. And here's a problem with government, and maybe this is a deeper philosophical problem with government.
Let's get into it.
They see a problem and they go, I'm going to fix this problem. And they come up with a new rule for everyone, right? For every law, there was something that caused that to be a law. So let's assume of the 482 cities in California that 10% of them are going to be run poorly by bad city councils that are going to say it's my little kingdom here and I'm going to do whatever I want and I'm going to block all things. So 10% bad and 90% of people trying to do what's right for their community and grow responsibly. And that's what it is. It's about grow responsibly. Sacramento will look at the 10% and go, we need to solve that problem. There's bad actors out there and we know better. And so they create a law that covers all 100% of cities. And well, why are we under this rule now? We were doing just fine in creating housing and meeting the needs of our people. We understand that we're a valley that doesn't have any more floor space to grow. We can only infill. We don't have a lot more commerce that can come here for people to work at. So if we keep adding people, they're going to have to drive out of the valley in order to get work. We understand our situations. Just let us be. If Sacramento would get out of the way, cities would build housing, and 90% of the people would be responsible, and then 10% go crack down on them, right? Get them straight, but let the rest do their thing. Instead, they just create laws that get in the way.
Why do you feel that there's that kind of like us and them
On
from
Sacramento,
where yeah, right. The goal is to represent everybody successfully, ideally, but where's that coming from?
it's mind-boggling that people, many of the representatives in the assembly and so on, came from city councils, then move up into Sacramento, and I don't do their job, but from my perspective, it looks like they've lost their minds, right? That there's some other wheeling and dealing that has to be going on to get what they want. So here's what I think the true problem is currently, because other states aren't like this. Other states have a more divided government, and therefore they actually have to talk with each other, work on things, and come up with responsible laws. We have a supermajority in Sacramento, and you can throw enough stuff at the wall, something's going to stick, and it may not have been discussed or thought out or whatever. And I don't see a responsible counterbalance to a lot of the stuff that's coming out. So cities like us have to raise our hands and scream, but small cities don't work. So we band together with League of Cities and SCAG, Southern California Association of Governments, and we try and join with other groups to go, give us local control. And that just doesn't seem to happen. So until we get back to a less than super majority of one party in Sacramento, this is going to continue. And by the way, I'm not advocating for a super majority the other way either. That would just be the problem in reverse. Right. I might care for some of the outcomes more because I'm from the minority side in Sacramento, but having a supermajority sucks. In federal, when we have the House, the Senate, and the president all under one party, that makes me extremely nervous. I like having it very, very close in the houses, so you actually still have to talk to each other to get something done. Otherwise, it can be stopped. In Sacramento, sure, we can't stop stupid.
Yeah. It seems that it doesn't matter which side would have a supermajority. When you lose diversity of thought.
Correct. That's it. Perfect.
Right. And we talk about diversity in all sorts of ways in California.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Except the one that sometimes gets missed, maybe diversity of thought when it comes to, for example, a supermajority, right? Like it's interesting that that's not considered. Not necessarily that it should be some sort of criteria, but like that it would be an important consideration for how to manage an institution or an organization or a state. And say, do we have the right board of directors, or does everyone on the board tend to think one way? Right. You'd say, well, we need to diversify our board. So
that's what elections are for. I'm not 100% sure why it doesn't end up being more diverse, other than the populace has actually spoken, and that represents the will of California. I don't really think it does. I think it's stilted. But yeah, that's what elections are for. Here's where I think we are as a country, maybe a little bit different in California, but I think that we've got 10% wingdings on the right, we got 10% wingdings on the left, and the rest of us the 80% of us live in the middle. And diversity of thought within the middle, it's a great thing. Just having the two louds on either end yelling at each other, that doesn't actually solve anything either. That the extremes on both ends. So if we could just get the 80% elected, we would have that diversity of thought, even if it was of a single party. There's a couple of politicians up there that just produce massively extreme bills, and thank God some of them get killed, but they're doing it just for show. But
because, and if those things are PR worthy. At some point, money and PR are part of the equation, where it's like, will that get attention? And that ends up often fitting into that 10% you're talking about where,
Yep.
okay, well, and the world tends to think that the whole state is just in these extremes where it's not. You're just getting thrown that in your algorithm because you click
Right.
on it faster and they
That's
make
right.
money on it. So it's like, and most people seem to, like when I bring that up to people, they seem to understand the algorithm that they're being fed, in an echo
Right.
chamber, that the extreme viewpoints dominate the engagement portion of the algorithm. And that's why you're seeing it. You're not seeing the normal person like, actually,
Yep.
everything's okay. I got a little issue here, a little issue there. Everything is extreme issue.
Right.
We have to solve the crisis. And well, look, you've run for office.
Yeah.
So how is it different in how you've run, right? And how you've related to people to get their vote versus, we'll call it, versus the problem.
Yep. So it's interesting. Some inside baseball on politics then. There's two jobs for every elected person: getting elected, being elected. And I know a whole bunch of people that have just be outstanding in the position, but they don't have a marketing bone in their body to be able to figure out how to get elected. And um, if our presidential election isn't a case study in throw the red meat to your base so that you will rally them to vote, I don't know what is. For me, I went about it a little bit differently. I said, I'm going to talk to everybody because um, I think I'm an approachable person. And I think that I willingly take questions and answer questions. And it may not be the answer you want to hear, but at least you'll know where I am and you have the opportunity to change my mind. When running for office, one of the strategies is knock on every door in your district. And since Simi Valley went to districting, which is a whole nother stupid conversation, it just doesn't work here. The districts are small, and I was able to, myself and my team, knock on every door. But I looked at the list like this. We get a list of what the voters are in the House, number of Republicans, number of Democrats, number of independents. And I say, all the people that are high propensity voters, to me, I let the team go and talk to them. They were probably going to say yes anyway. And I took all of the precincts that had the most people that are least likely to vote for me, and I went and knocked on their doors. And it is amazing when you're not behind a keyboard and you actually talk to someone face to face, how they go, you're reasonable. You actually listen to me. You talk to me. So politics, if we can get out from behind the keyboards, right, and actually meet each other, more town halls, that sort of thing, then politics will become better. It'll be returned to some sense of civility. And I went to my worst critics' homes, said, all right, what do you want to say? Here to my face, not here on the keyboard. And things got more civil.
Well, let me bring it full circle. If we would just have a coffee with somebody, you probably realize how much you have in common before you start getting into where you disagree about.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. If you would just get out in the field with a machete, head out, meet some strangers, get out to the jungle,
walk in somebody's shoes. Yeah. Yeah. And that's it. I of the skill sets that I have, one is I can find something with every single person that we can find common ground on, and we start there, and then we have our conversation. Where did you go to school? How many kids do you have? Just get something where we can agree that this is a commonality between us. Once we have that, then the rest is a conversation.
And you have way more in common with people as humans than we disagree with. Yep. Somehow it's like, it seems like what happens is you watch some news channel and you listen to the way they speak about people and issues, and it's so attacking all the time.
It's attacking.
It's so attacking. You could just say, I don't agree and not attack.
Yeah.
But the attacking is what gets clicks and makes money, and people know that. But you'd think that people could get past that and say, oh, okay, well, all I'm doing right now is getting emotionally invested in this. They're doing that intentionally. And just because this person thinks, even so, if I could look past that, just because this person thinks differently than me, doesn't automatically mean that I should ascribe every set of terrible values that they may have to that person.
Yep.
And think that right? You're hearing one instance in a chopped up story with layers of filters and cognitive biases and storytelling and agendas, right? Like so much. And then you think you could say, well, I don't necessarily have to say that that's like that person's miserable because they think that way about one thing. I don't know what room they're sitting in when they had the original conversation before it got to me. They're not telling me everything, right?
Right. One of the things that lends to that is this whole litmus test thing, right? If there's one topic that we disagree on, then I can't talk to you anymore, right? Because you're not on my side.
Right.
Like, really? If we agree about 99% of the things, out of 100 topics, we're good on 99, but that one, okay. And it's that.
Yeah, there's no turning back on that one. There's no turning back. The biggest one I've found tends to be on abortion.
Yep.
Where if you take the alternative position, the other side will say, I can't even, it doesn't matter what the president does, thinks, or how they act. If you vote yes or you vote no, I'm voting for the other person, right? And
I wish our world,
that just shows the single issue voter mentality so often, right?
I wish the presidency was so simple that it only had to deal with one thing. There, done, and now you can make your decision on to vote on that person. But unfortunately, you've got to look at the entire slate of capabilities to be able to deal with an amazing amount of stuff. Being president has to be the most mind-boggling job on the face of the planet. When you think about, okay, in one day I got to fly overseas and I got to negotiate trade deals with adversaries. And then I got to go to the Middle East and I've got to try and figure out how I can get people to shake hands and talk to each other instead of shoot at each other and blow each other up. And then I've got, no one has that skill set going in. No one has the complete, they might have one area like Trump, businessman, right? I actually like the way that he handles trade. Great. The other skill sets, not his, main thing that he did his whole life. So finding someone that has that balance and diversity of everything. I'll say that I'm a jack of all trades and a master of one. I'm good at coffee. And the rest of it is I'm figuring it out as I go. I just happen to be a pretty quick learn and I read staff reports, but it's a tough job. Being even the city level, it's a tough job trying to figure out all the things and do the right thing. And not everybody's happy with you.
That's part of leadership, right? Is being willing to be unliked, having what it takes to do what you believe is right in the face of, I always use the Thanos example. Thanos is, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
This is like the reason why I thought that was so important. For those listening who don't know Thanos, it's from the Avengers, from the Avengers 2-movie series, End of Days. I forget the name of the thing, but Thanos is such a significant. He's one of my favorite villains because I think the social commentary on history is so important. Where it's just that's classic. One person's villain is another person's hero. In some eyes, like Mao Zedong was one of those people, right? Mm-hmm. Where he's like, okay, more people lost their lives under his leadership, arguably, than any other leader ever. Something like 100 million, I think, is the estimate, or something. I mean, some crazy number of like, and here he is. And to some people, think that when you look past human life,
right, that stuff,
you can bring China to be a global leader.
Yeah,
and that's what it took. Thanos, similarly, the world will be peaceful if I could just get rid of half the people.
Half the people.
It's so important. I think that was such an important movie to watch that character.
Yeah. Let's talk about China for a second. So you brought up, this year, I was scheduled to go to China 9 different times. And we ended up canceling some classes. So I'll still probably make it there about 6 times this year. And over the past few years, I've done a lot of traveling back and forth. And it is fascinating to me to have conversations with my friends there about the differences in our governments. And gosh, now that I'm saying this out loud on a podcast and I'm leaving for China in like 10 days, Well, I'll say it anyway. It's just fascinating that everything about your life, every piece of information is the right of the government to have, and they have it. They transact everything on about 3 apps on their phone. It's becoming near cashless society because they transact on WeChat. They do their WeChat's like their Facebook. Didi is their Uber, and Alibaba is their Amazon, and they transact everything on their phones, and stuff shows up not in days but in hours. In Shanghai anyway, and it is fascinating. But there's cameras across the streets. There's cameras across the sidewalk doing facial recognition and see. And I asked my friends, does that bother you to have every bit of your life known by the government? And they went, no, that's what keeps us safe. I'm like, explain that. So, well, Rocky, if I were going to steal your wallet, one, they'd probably know I was going to steal it in the first place. But two, by the time I got home, the police would be there because they could track me and the wallet all the way back home. And that's why we don't steal anything. And it hit me that all of the people that I'm talking to are under 65 years old. And so they've never known anything other than the government having control of your life. On the opposite end, capitalism is alive and well in China to an extent. It's capitalism when as soon as you become awesome at what you're doing, all of a sudden you get a new partner. And the new partner says, hi, I'm the government. I'm here to help. And they get to dictate how much you grow and who you get to grow with and that sort of thing. So it's interesting. And most of the capitalists come from being trained outside of China and then come back to run their businesses, taking advantage of a very low labor cost in their workforce.
Sure. Well, essentially, there's trade-offs, right, with each style and the things that we value here, certain freedoms, limited regulation, freedom of speech, things that will say that America holds as its highest, most important values are not necessarily things that they're maybe even raised with there, that they would even consider that, because when it comes to, say, safety, as you just mentioned, well, maybe I'll give up some speech and privacy and freedoms if it means that cops are X times more effective when that happens. And I'm not defending it, but I can, this is a matter of thinking about when you travel, that your way isn't always the right way all the time.
That's right.
And it's not about China or the government in this case. It's just that we're very quick to say how terrible things are to everything else but the way we think. And when it comes down to it, when I was traveling in countries like Vietnam or Cuba, I found some of the happiest people I've ever seen who had a mattress, if at all, on the floor.
Yep.
With no windows or doors.
Yep. Exactly. Difference between city and rural. I found extremely happy people that had no idea what the Communist Party was really even all about. When I went out to there's coffee fields in the south of China, and we just get out with the farmers. All that stuff is irrelevant. The other side of the conversation, though, when I said, well, about the safety in China, and I said, well, in the U.S., we at least want to believe we have a right to privacy. Now, I know that I carry a device in my pocket all the time that's listening to me at every moment, waiting to give me information if I ask for it. And there's cameras everywhere. So I want to believe I have privacy. I said, but for safety, I said, in the U.S., we have this thing called the Second Amendment. And if you wanted to steal my wallet, you actually don't know if I'm packing and going to pull out a gun and shoot you for trying to steal my wallet. And that's what that gives us our sense of safety. And they looked at me like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. That's why you have school shootings. That's why you have everything. And the prism that we look through life with is very interesting. Yep. I appreciated the insight.
That's the perfect example of like something. It's very complicated. We're not a simple society. We have lots of different people from everywhere with all sorts of traumas, historical traumas that people have dealt with. We're a melting pot, a beautiful melting pot country that comes with. So I should say what it doesn't come with is one size fits all approaches to things.
Right. And
It
yet,
makes it harder.
government thinks that that's the great way to do it. We have a one size that fits all solution to things. I'm like, stop it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is interesting that you have that perspective, given that, again, like the state, at least vocally, communicates its level of support of diversity in so many different ways, which is, again, a wonderful thing until it's, I guess, until you're like, well, how come you're not considering this piece
Right.
of diversity?
Um, it, God, we haven't even touched on religion yet either, but diversity of religion in the U.S., I think, is absolutely one of the cornerstones of why we are successful. Even though we're based on Judeo-Christian values, and that's sort of enshrined in throughout the Constitution, it is the fact that everyone can come here and bring their religion with them and worship the way they want, and we're like, that's okay. No, in all of my travels, I don't do a lot in Europe, right? So in a lot of my travels, though, it's very monotheistic or non-theistic countries that I go to, and I think that there's just such a richness to having that diversity of thought from a religious standpoint too.
I find the study of religions, to be a fascinating outside, even just understanding why people think the way they do. Even if you weren't religious, like the importance of reading the Bible, forget about the religion. If you just look at it as even if you said it's a sliver of truth with a lot of elaboration that is supposed to have some sort of meaning to it.
Right. There's
Right?
still some
Even
good
if you
values in there.
you would read it as something that's been around for so long. Like, even if it's important to understand perspective. So that's one perspective. You don't even have to be religious, but to not understand that perspective of why people feel, I mean, these stories are just things that we've adopted into our way of being, especially in Western culture, as I should say, it's the foundations of Western culture. It's the it is why we think the way we do, even if it's wrong or untrue. The stories, truth is separate from narrative and storytelling, as the news makes it very clear, and it's always been that way. It's like it starts from there with the Torah through the Old Testament and into the New Testament. But it's important stuff. And I think that's just, it's a slice of the pie of knowledge that gives people perspective of saying, well, why would people be religious in the first place? Well, if you have to ask that question, you should go and read and understand. If you say, I don't understand why anyone could vote for Trump, or I don't understand why anyone is going to vote for Kamala, you should go talk to people and learn why.
Learn why. And well, to that one, I don't think anybody's voting for anybody. I think they're voting against somebody in this election. But maybe that's. I have a quick story. Maybe, I hope it's quick. I hope it's interesting, about diversity of religion. And I did a lot of work in Indonesia when I first started in the coffee training and consulting. And one time I got to go I taught a class in Jakarta, the big city. And I said, I really want to see the coffee fields of Indonesia. They're the third or fourth largest coffee producer, depending on the year. And I want to go see some of this. So, great. Fly across the island of Java to this city. And Yusianto, who was in my class, he's a scientist for the Indonesia Coffee and Cocoa Research Institute, ICRI. And he'll meet you, take you to ICRI, and then you'll get in the car and you'll go up into the volcano and you'll see these coffee fields. I'm like, awesome. So I get there. And then I realize I don't speak any Bahasa, and Yusianto doesn't speak any English, but we speak coffee. And I also didn't realize that once we got through the thing at ICRI, the center, and got in the car, it was a 5-hour car ride out to the volcano. I'm like, okay, I got 5 hours in the car with a guy who doesn't speak English. This is pre Google Translate. And I had a book, the Indonesia to English translate. And we had 5 hours. So with the occasional interruption of call to prayer, where we would pull off the road, they go into the gas station, they pray, they come back out, and we would continue our conversation. I said, what do you pray for? Took a while. What do you pray for when you pray? He had the weirdest answer. He said, I pray for health of my family, peace, and a little bit of prosperity. I'm like, see, there's where we're different. I would never pray for those things. That's so strange and different that we would want that. And it became a really bonding moment between he and I. And not only did we break a lot of bread together, but we actually got to share a moment that we even have the same belief structure under different gods or different deities of how you get there. But it was interesting. It was super interesting.
Wow.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's amazing how complacent we get as people with everything we have and everything we think. All of a sudden you just adapt immediately, and that becomes your norm. And you forget that at the most, I think people forget at the most basic level, we're the same.
Yeah.
When you subtract your apartment, your first world apartment with great plumbing and hot water, unlimited amounts of hot water and toilets that flush,
and electricity that goes on when you flick the switch.
Immediately goes on when you flick, with cheap light bulbs that can be replaced immediately. You just start to forget that. You start thinking again that there's like an us and them, and it's just at the most basic level we're all the same. So let me ask you this: what needs to be done in obviously trust in government has been eroding, devolving. As far as I can tell, it's
That's a very nice word. No, it's eroding. It's
eroding.
yeah. No, evolving is I think the kind of twist on it. That's spin.
Devolving. Devolving.
Devolving. Yes, absolutely. 100%.
Eroding and devolving.
Devolving. Okay, got it.
Yeah, it's evolving for the worse.
Right.
As far as I can tell.
Yep.
And it seems to be at the worst it's ever been. I've been doing these, trying to understand the nature of, I've started coming from a perspective of people just need to have some civic humility about what they think, why they think they're right all the time after watching the news or social media. And it doesn't seem to be happening. Like people still get deep in their echo chambers and think they have all the information, and everyone else who has a different story is an idiot. And what needs to happen from your perspective to create?
I think I actually have this answer, and it came to me, and I'll even tell you when it came to me. I got the news feed that the previous president had an assassination attempt, and I went, "Oh crap!" And I turned on the news, and I watched the replay over and over again of this attempted assassination of Trump, and I went, "How did we get here?" And I also experienced the same thing during the riots way back when. I had to drive my car down into the riot zone because it didn't fit. It didn't make sense to me. And when I got there, it's the same sense of desperation. When words, when Hitler and genocide and xenophobe and when words no longer have anywhere to go, you can't escalate any further than Hitler, right? Right. And so what's the next logical conclusion? You're going to push somebody, and then you're going to push back. And so we've run out of places for words to go. Where's the solution? The words are coming from the extremes, the 10% and the 10% on either side. That's where the words are coming from. The 80% in the middle have been silent because they didn't want to be canceled by the 10% on either side. So the solution is the 80% of us in the middle that go, that's stupid and that's stupid, need to call out stupid on both sides. Not one side or the other, need to call out stupid on both sides. If media would say, you're no longer going to be allowed on our network if you continue this type of dangerous, hateful rhetoric, because we're not going to publicize it. And now it's going to damage their ratings because going on, as you said, the algorithm shows that every time that someone screams evil, then ratings go up. But if we took a responsibility within ourselves to call out stupid on both sides, to call out hostile on both sides, then we're going to get to a place where the middle will rise up and no longer fear being canceled or yelled at or screamed at. But if we don't, then we're going to be oppressed by these extremes as they shoot at each other right over our heads, and we're going to get caught in the crossfire. So the solution is stand up and gently call out ignorance on both sides.
Do you do this as Mayor Pro Tem in Simi Valley. How do you enact this kind of this beautiful philosophy?
I will tell you that the extremes are maybe even less than 10 and 10 in Simi Valley. I would say the majority of the people live in the 90% of the middle, and there's 5 and 5. And absolutely, I do. We, at our city council meetings, we will often get the 5% from one side. And in other meetings where I'm out, like I'm part of the Republican Central Committee, and we will get stupid in there, and I will call it out in the middle of, like, if you want to keep failing in life and moving people, just keep doing what you're doing. Keep being loud, extreme, obnoxious, and people will keep treating you the same way, and you will get nothing done. So I call it out there. It's tough on the dais. You're not allowed to really call out a lot of the people, especially if they're citizens, but they know there's ways of saying you're not going to get what you want. And so, yes, I feel confident enough here's two things. I feel confident enough in myself and where I stand on things that I live in that 80% common sense middle, that I can have the conversations, and I know where the line of stupid and sensible lie on either end. The other thing is, I actually don't care if I get reelected. I'm going to do the best I can, and I love what I'm doing, and it's fascinating to me, and I'm super glad it's me in the chair making really good strategic decisions, because I can see some of these other people that would make them scare me. But if I didn't get elected again, but I spoke my truth the whole time, so be it. I think that it's just been making me stronger by being able to calmly stay in the middle and deal with both sides.
Do you think some of that comes from the ways of being that are required in order to be a successful entrepreneur?
Yes. If you realize that every single citizen is your customer, and you want to do what's right for the customer so that you will be a stronger business, stronger city, then you're in the right mindset. And that's a good entrepreneurial mindset. But I did hang a sign in the back of my coffee shop, and it was for the baristas, and it said, "Sometimes the customer's full of crap, but only I get to tell them." and that happens, right?
That's very Larry David.
Yeah.
I forgot what the coffee shop episode. There's something he puts on the customers. I forget what it was. Okay. It's funny though.
Yeah, in retail, in business, you get 5% of the crazies. I banned a couple of people from my coffee shop forever because they were stupid. They would either berate my employees, like, don't ever come back. I had one guy says, "I make a living by going into retail establishments and finding out how they're not ADA compliant and blackmailing them." I'm like, really? Get out. Never come back to my store. He thought that was some sort of brilliance. And I think it's just the dredge of humanity. So entrepreneurialism and realizing who your customer is, I think they go hand in hand.
Why aren't there more entrepreneurs in government?
Because they're busy doing their business, busy doing their job. That's why there's a lot of old people in government. Until my kids got up and out of the house, I was concentrating on my business, and I'm in a blessed position now where my kids are comfortably up and through school. One's got a couple more weeks to go, and he'll be through school. And my business is one that's extremely flexible. And since my calendar for government stuff is set in December for the whole year, I can fit my work in between. Another entrepreneurial flexibility that you can do that. But yeah, if I had to work 8 hours a day in a real job, and I do work 8 hours a day, they just sometimes at midnight to 3, weird hours because of the time zones. But yeah, it's tough for people to give up their business, and they're also responsible for tons of employees and making sure that they're successful. So
yeah, it feels, I've always wished there'd be more engineers for problem solving. Mm-hmm. and entrepreneurs for creativity, or problem solving with creativity, and how to look at thinking about people as customers, and in government. That's such an important thing. And they, in fact, are your customers.
They are.
They're paying your salary. In essence, there's a level of that. But it seems like the differences of culture in a government organization and a business are so radically different. And the way that bureaucracy is thought about, like sometimes if you tell someone in government, sometimes, not all the time, like, hey, I can make your job more efficient. All you have to do is use AI and you can do that in a second, or like, here's some good software. Sometimes, and again, I'm not speaking for everyone. It's like, well, then what am I going to do all day?
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Well, you're going to be creative and you're going to find something else. You're going to expand the services of the city. Right. Yeah.
How about represent more people better?
Right. Oh, it's true. I have so many frustrations with bureaucracy, and maybe this actually works in Entrepreneur. When I was an entrepreneur, I had like 5 different versions of the health department that came and inspected my place. And I'm like, why are you here? It's like, because somebody stupid did something wrong and we have to make sure you do it right. Okay. Government rules. It finally hit me. Government rules are there to protect all of us from the dumbest amongst us, the Darwin Award winners, right? Now, what if government hasn't figured out is how to fast track the responsible, ethical people that are going to do it right. And so we're all subject to the same amount of slow to make sure that stupid doesn't get through. Right. If we can figure that out, AI might be a great tool in looking at the background of a particular person and saying, you're going to make horrible decisions. You're on this path. And, oh, you've done this before. You go on this path. That would be a great boon for government, working for everyone, not just that blanket rule for everybody.
Yeah. It seems to me that there's a lot of cultural shifts that could happen that could make things, to think about efficient. But the government, it's my experience in many years working with government or for government, efficiency is not
always the goal.
Outcomes are another one that doesn't seem to be, well, we invested $5 billion. What are the outcomes? What did we learn? Can we do it better next time? We're investing that money into something. It's easy to say there's a lot of investment and money put into something, but if you didn't get out what you expected, what hypotheses were you testing? What did you learn? How did you get to the outcomes you needed to get to eventually, right?
If you want to get me on a hateful roll, just ask me about MTA, our transit system in Simi and every other city of our size everywhere in the country that doesn't work. And it's just throwing stupid money after stupid money. And I raised my hand the first day I was being introduced. I'm like, I can fix this. And they're like, yeah, but that's not allowed by the federal government. I'm like, just wanted to smash my head. And every time that topic comes up, I get, because it's so inefficient. It's so horrible. It's such a boondoggle waste of money.
I remember hearing a story about like a canopy at a school. In order to put shade, it cost, given all the rules and regulations and everything that needed to, it was like, I want to say like 20 by 20 shade structure ended up it would have to cost $150,000 or something.
Yep.
Because
liability
of
hurting
the things in between. Yeah.
Inefficiency at its best.
Maybe our next podcast will get into bureaucracy and inefficiency.
Start with transit.
Okay, yeah. I'll tell them.
All right. Cool.
That is our hour, and what a great conversation. I'm grateful to have had you on. I think this is wonderful. Thanks for taking your time and sharing. I think people need to hear that, the main thing here is that difference between big city and small city, or urban and rural, is really the thing that, if we can respect our differences and understand that it's not even California versus Texas. It's, all the big cities vote blue.
Yeah. Central Valley versus, yeah.
Right? So we can get a long way. So any final words you want to share with your constituents?
Nope. Other than I've been enjoying a beautiful Ethiopia Sidamo natural process coffee. And since we're about to the bottom, I guess the podcast must be over.
Podcast is over, but I will finish it by saying you have a book, and it's profiling Profiling Practicum, a book you wrote. Give me a quick
I
brief
did.
on that.
I did. I gratuitously put it in the background. It's on coffee roasting. So for all you home roasters or anybody that wants to go roast your own coffee, come talk to me.
All right. Thank you for that book placement. A great pleasure, sir.
And to you. I really enjoyed this.